Hello, welcome back, my Royal Rogues. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and welcome to another episode of the Harry and Meghan Archives, where we take a closer look at the evolution of the most infamous couple of recent royal history. And in this episode, the clip that you're about to see is owned by the BBC, but strangely enough, was never broadcasted. In fact, it was available for a brief time at Getty Images' website until it was completely restricted for further licensing. But luckily for us, I've got a license, because it exposes Meghan using a secret controlling gesture on Harry to hurry up during that Commonwealth Day service at Westminster Abbey in 2018, and we also get a bonus mask slip at the end. But before we get started, I want to talk about Ana Lucia Beltran Diamonds, the sponsor of this video, and we invite you on a journey not just of luxury, but of deep, sensual discovery. Picture a diamond, its surface smooth yet unyielding, like the strength that resides in you. Feel the texture of diamonds in your wrist as a bracelet or a necklace closer to your beating heart, and with it, the permanence of your own story. With Ana Lucia Beltran, you embrace more than just diamonds. You embrace a part of yourself, sensual, strong, and enduring. They are permanent, as enduring as the legacy you create each day. And you can, as my beautiful Royal Rogie, enjoy a 20% discount with the code ROYALROGUE20 in the link in the description of this video. I give my endorsement to Ana Lucia Beltran Diamonds because our diamonds are a celebration of you. So to analyze body language, you must look for reactions, and any reaction is a change in emotional display or behavior. But first, to be able to detect any change, you have to establish the initial state of the person. In this case, Harry is talking in a very fluid manner, using his right hand gestures to add more intensity to his words, and he's at a personal distance from the couple he's talking to. And they are paying attention to him. The three of them are forming a close triangle, and that's one of the ways you know that all of them are truly engaged in the moment. He has a good posture, and we could say that he's comfortable. Like, he is actually confident talking about engaging with them. This is his current or initial state. Just keep in mind that an initial state is different from a body language baseline that is a person's usual nonverbal expression. Now, here comes the change. When the clip starts, you can see Meghan's hand already up in the air about to touch him. She is looking directly at Harry, and that is relevant because usually when you're going to interrupt someone who is talking, you should excuse yourself. If you're interrupting, you say a simple "excuse me" and establish eye contact with what we could call the other people. As in, Meghan needs to call Harry's attention to her and away from them, so it would have been nice if she at the very least established eye contact. In fact, the man of the group does exactly that. He notices that Meghan is approaching Harry, and he does the most natural thing in the world, that is trying to establish eye contact with her. But anyway, Meghan reaches out with her hand, touches him in the middle of his back, and says a few words. Harry turns around in mid-sentence, establishes eye contact with her, and immediately stares into the void. That stare that someone shows when they're trying to process what they just heard. He's not actually looking at anything. He's just looking into the void while he tries to make sense of what Meghan just said. Then he does a hand gesture with his thumb, signaling that in one way or another, he has to get going. And now, you might say that this one is just a silly face from Harry trying to excuse himself from having to leave. In fact, he's made that face a couple other times, and there's even a high-resolution photograph around. But in body language analysis, it's not enough to define the what of people's nonverbal expression. It's even more important to define the why. And in this case, the what is very simple. A silly face that is in some way part of Harry's baseline. But he doesn't do it all the time. And if you take a good look at this kind of expression, the emotion associated is being a bit terrified, even if it's just a playful way. But again, the why is important, and in this case it's relevant the reason why he had such a reaction, because he had other options. For example, acknowledging Meghan's call to action and proceeding to finish his conversation, maybe talk for a few more seconds, and that's it. The context is also important, and in this case they were at the end of the Commonwealth service in 2019. The event had already ended, so one can wonder what could be so important that required the Duke of Sussex to just cut whatever he was doing. I don't mean that Harry should have some kind of rock star attitude or anything like that, but I'm sure that whatever he had to go next, it could wait. And if it were really important, then I don't think it would be Meghan telling him that they had to go. It would be an assistant. The problem is that we already have enough instances of Meghan rushing and pulling Harry out of conversations, like that veterans event. And you know that when a behavior pattern repeats over time, you realize that it is part of the person's behavior. So there's a very good chance that Meghan interrupted Harry because she just wanted to go. Well, it's perfectly understandable. She being pregnant and having to attend the service for such a long time, it would not be comfortable for her at all. So there was a valid reason to call Harry's attention, but what happens in the last 2 seconds of the clip tell a whole different story. You noticed that, right? 2 things happen at the same time. Meghan reached out for Harry's hand and she presses her lips. But there is a third signal that maybe you missed, and it's that Meghan turned her head away from Harry and the others before making this face. We as spectators can spot her face expression because for once she was not aware of the camera. Now, I remember that I've seen that exact same combination of gestures and facial expressions before, and it was at their wedding, when she had her lips pressed right until she managed to grab Harry's hand. And in both moments, the same happened. She made the same forced smile. That is too much of a coincidence. When Meghan displays the same behavior signals in the same order, first showing some frustration because she doesn't have Harry's attention or Harry is not holding her hand, then she manages to get whatever she wants from him and her face lightens up but with a forced smile. And let's not forget that she makes sure to hold his hand, keeping her thumb over, which is a display of power, protection, and control. But I want to emphasize that what is most relevant about this clip is Harry's immediate reaction with a silly face. It's like he's suddenly ashamed of engaging on a conversation, and when Meghan arrives and touches him, there is virtually no delay. That immediate reaction reinforces the theory that he already knows that when Meghan approaches him in a certain way and touches his back in a certain way, well, he should behave in a certain way. The silly face is trying to make an excuse for such interruption to the people he was talking to, and it must have been an uncomfortable moment for everyone. Well, except for Meghan, because she was wearing what looks like a marshmallow on her head, so it seems like she's not afraid at all about what people could think of her. And I absolutely support that attitude. Not to mention that she was also wearing that dress that was too much on the nose, having a pattern of breaking chains. Yeah, that looks appropriate for Meghan to wear for Commonwealth Day. But so far we have been suggesting that Meghan's behavior is due to the fact that they were about to leave the Commonwealth service and she was tired. But there is a very interesting clip of the same event, and it shows Meghan just 3 minutes after they arrived at Westminster Abbey. And the beauty of that clip is that we have not 1, not 2, but 3 body language signals that show she was, let's say, less than delighted to be there. Especially because one of those signals is a fake smile and the other is a mask slip. The first part is easy to spot. She's listening to someone speaking. She's got a not so genuine smile on her face, and then she checks out the person from top to bottom. You know that this is a way of being dismissive in a not so subtle way. And you might know how it feels that you're talking to someone and they look at you like that from top to bottom. Not a nice experience by any means. That's when Meghan notices that she's doing that dismissive gesture, and that's why she follows up with one of the fakest facial expressions I have seen. Like being delighted, but it feels forced. I don't know if this is even worse than the eyes going from top to bottom. You tell me. And right after that, she looks away. And when doing so, she tries to hide a subtle mask slip. You can see how her face changes, but she makes sure to be looking down so nobody around her can see her expression. The good thing is that the camera was pointed straight at her, so it's really hard to miss. Then she raises her face, tries to play it cool, looking at the people, greeting them again. And Harry tries to warm the atmosphere, saying something witty, as witty as Harry can get. Which is not that much, but it was the right thing to do, and all Meghan can do is to have another half-baked smile at him. I forgot to mention that right before that she swallows hard. Maybe it's nothing, but that's also a signal when people are upset. And finally, when Meghan doesn't need to put on the show anymore, or at least until she bumps onto another group of peasants, the mask slips and the smile fades into that face that she tried to conceal a couple seconds ago. Like, let's move on, Harry. I don't want to keep talking to people. So you can see that regardless if it was the end of the Commonwealth service or it was the beginning, Meghan was not only upset that things were not happening at her own pace, but that Harry was having any kind of social contact with people that didn't involve her. And this is not the only time we have seen their body language like this, but this is certainly one of the best examples of such behavior. But Rogues, I would love to know what do you think about this in the comments. Remember that this is going to be a special ongoing series, so make sure to check the playlist where you will find all these episodes and more. Also, don't forget to download my free 100 body language tips in the description of this video if you want to read anyone like a book. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the Royal Rogue, and remember, much love and bliss.